All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Jesus, and in today's debate, I will be on the affirmative for why public schools have failed our children. Um, um, the first definition that I would like to go over would be failure. The way that in this debate, the meaning failure should be interpreted is by wasting our children's time by not teaching them necessary skills and teaching them unnecessary testing skills. Um, the second definition is public schools. Um, I want I want the definition for public schools to be the original definition, which is a school that is supported by public funds. Um, the plan for this um, solvency should be following the way that Massachusetts handles their public schools, since according to worldpopulationreview.com and Forbes, they have the best public school system in the country. The criterion for this debate should be what benefits children more. Um, Going into my first advantage, the poor student to teacher ratio. Um, Subpoint A, this harms the children because they could feel neglected by their teachers. Subpoint B, the inherency of this would be resulting in the students not caring about schools. Um, Subpoint C, the solvency would be having a similar ratio to student to teacher ratio like Massachusetts, which is 13:1. The statistic was brought out from a website named publicschoolreview.com. Subpoint D, having a poor ratio will force students to not be involved during school since they feel neglected by their teachers. Going on to my second advantage, too much emphasis on standardized testing and regular testing through classes. Subpoint A, this harms our students because they're only studying for what's going to be on the test and not what's going to be part of their future. Subpoint B, the inherency would be that it puts too much pressure on the students and it will stress them out and make them feel like the school system is failing them. Um, Subpoint C, the solvency is to reduce standardized testing like Massachusetts. According to therapyinsider.com, too much emphasis on standardized testing um, prevents teachers from being creative and engaging with their students. The teachers mostly focus on what's going to be on the test and getting them ready for the test because all public schools care about, well, what they care about is having a good test score percentage so that they could get more funds from the government. Um, Subpoint D, this impacts students because it only teaches them what's going to be on the test and not anything um, else. Being a good test taker isn't really as important to if you're going into a career, as you're not going to be taking multiple choice questions a lot. You're going to be doing actual like work, and yeah, I would forfeit the rest of my time.
Okay, Judge Jesus, you ready for questions?
Yeah.
I'll start the timer now. Do you mind going over what your first argument was again?
It was poor student to teacher ratios.
What was your subpoint B again?
For the first argument,
Yes.
um, it results in students not caring about their education.
Okay. And then to go back to like your, I believe it was your second argument about standardized testings. Don't you think that standardized testing is good, and it holds teachers accountable to assure that they're teaching like the kids what they should be learning, like basic math for those teachers that are kind of just on those tensions that they know they can't get fired, so they're just like doing whatever they need to do to get paid?
I mean, there's some aspects to standardized testing that could be useful, but as a whole, I don't think standardized testing is a good measure to put on a student to see how well they do in school and how well they retain information.
Awesome. And then you said that the criterion is, so if you can say what benefits children more, you win, and then what if I can prove that what benefits children more, then I win.
Yeah,
Awesome. And then what was it that you said about Massachusetts? It's the best schooling system in the country.
the best public school system. Yeah.
Okay, and that is my time. Um, okay, are you guys ready for my 6 minutes? Awesome. Alrighty. Hi, everyone, and thank you for coming out to the debate today. I'm really excited. Thank you, judge and opponent. I think this is going to be a really fun debate, so let's get started. The topic is public schools have failed our children. Um, Today, I'm the negative, so I'm going to be proving that public schools have not failed our children. Um, I agree with my opponent's criterion, and then I do want to just specify that I believe that this is an inherent value debate. I agree with most of my, um, or I agree with all of my opponent's definitions, um, but I just want to specify for the failed one, I put for my definition not achieving its end or not lasting, being unsuccessful. So I'm going to go ahead and go on to my arguments. My first argument today is going to be availability. I got this source from publicschoolsreview.com, May 25th, 2020. Subpoint A, public schools provide access to an education for every child in a community. Subpoint B, the Huffman Post notes that by law, public schools cannot turn away students based on academic performance, income, or disability. Subpoint C, this ensures that every student in a neighborhood has the same educational opportunities as the neighborhood down the street, regardless of their current personal or financial situation. And subpoint D, since education is frequently seen as the great equalizer for society, the availability of education for all is a key benefit for these institutions offers. And for my second argument today, I'm going to specify on food. I got this source from theconversation.com. Subpoint A, the National School Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program provides school meals to at least 30 million children each year, more than half of all public school students. Subpoint B, the food is free or deeply discounted for students who qualify based on their family's income. These meals are essential for many reasons, including the fact that hunger and food insecurity make it harder for students to focus. Subpoint C, without consistent daily meals, students lack the energy to participate and get stressed out by what they will eat next. And subpoint D, through free or reduced school meals, are meant to help low income students. Some states, like Vermont, with funding from nonprofits, serve them to all students. Every student can focus better when they have enough to eat. And for my last argument today, my argument 3 is public schools can sponsor more activities. Got this source from babycenter.com, February 21st, 2019. Subpoint A, when it comes to offering extracurricular sports and clubs, academic support, and better supplies and learning tools, public schools have the edge. Public schools are simply bigger than private schools. and have enough students to pull off a science fair or um, a power of choir or computer club. Subpoint C, also federal and state laws require public schools to provide diagnosis and disability services. And subpoint D, public schools are more likely to offer gifted and talented um, remedial, meaning teaching again contexts that for students that have previously failed learning. So they have a program for that. So those are going to be my three arguments as to why public schools have not failed our children. And I'm going to go ahead and go back to my opponent and his arguments. His first argument was poor student to teacher ratio, that it harms the students, and that results of that, it means the students not caring. Um, I don't believe that all students, there's like in most public schools, it's going to be more than 30 students. It may be a bigger ratio compared to like a public school having a smaller amount of kids, but the way that these teachers can implement learning ways and things. It's more important to have more students in a class, so the kids can be able to communicate, have discussions, and be able to learn. Um, and then he also mentions that the poor ratio will force children to not feel motivated. Um, Unfortunately, I don't think that's true. I think that if anything, it's going to help these kids to be able to relate to more kids in the classroom and be able to have more kids to ask fellow students to ask for help in classes outside of school or during class. Then I'm going to mention the second argument for standardized testings. They said that the harms is on the test and not their future. I think that although the standardized testing may be a little bit too much, what we can do is fix the standardized testings. If anything, make it like an open book, so these kids don't feel like the stress of like having to remember all this information, and they're able to look through their books and critically think, or if anything, not have multiple choice questions, but short answer questions, so the teachers are able to help these kids critically think for these types of testings to assure that they are learning and they are understanding the information. And with that, that is my time.
All right, I'm going on to my questions now. Um, you said that public schools being available to a lot of low income people and mostly everybody. At what cost does it being available mean that it's okay for it to be like bad?
I think that it's really important for everybody to get the opportunity to have education. So it doesn't matter that if you live in a lower income area or higher income area, everybody's going to get the same basic information of learning in their education.
Okay. Um, what was which argument did you make that students could get their food from school?
Like what source I got it from?
Yeah.
Theconversation.com, and then they state how they go into detail with the National School Lunch Program and the School Breakfast Program.
Okay. Um, why do you think private schools have fewer population compared to public schools?
Possibly because um, private schools are like religious based, so there's not sure that many people are religious. Or private schools, you have to have like some sort of talent. Like I know school in Orange County, it's like a for talented people. So if you know how to sing or if you're good at a sport or certain things, so it lowers the opportunity for students to certain people to be able to be a part of those programs or schools because they don't meet the criterion that that school wants.
Okay. Um, that's time. So now it's my rebuttal, right? All right. And um, my opponent made an argument um specifying that the that children are not neglected from their class because they have their classmates, but that only puts more emphasis on my point of the teacher not being engaged with them because since they're talking to their classmates more, it helps them in a social aspect, but it doesn't help them like learn, if that makes sense. um they they need their teacher to teach them, and if they're just talking to their friends or socializing with other people, then that's where our public school system is failing us. um, she also mentioned about public schools providing food for our children. um, I'm not rich by any means, and I didn't qualify for free lunch, and every time I would get lunch at my high school, it would be like something crazy, like $5 per meal or something like that, which is why I didn't get lunch. So to counter her argument on that, some students don't even eat during school because either the food is not good or they could simply just not afford it. Um, she also stated that education being vastly available to students, um, yeah, it's available, but at what cost if s- it's proven that pl- school systems are being um, are not helping our students learn and um, reach their full potential because they have too many students and their student teacher ratio is off by a lot. Like in California, I think it's around 30, 30 to 1. And just imagining that 30 students to one teacher is a lot. And yeah, I would forfeit the rest of my time.
Okay, so I'm going to go to start my time for my last 5 minutes. Just want to say thank you again for Judge and my opponent. This has been a very, very good debate. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, the topic was public schools have failed our children. I today was the negative, so I was trying to prove that public schools have not failed our children. I'm going to go ahead and before I go over my arguments again, go over my opponent's rebuttals. He mentioned that for the availability, that teachers are not being engaged with them, and although it might help the students in a social aspect, it does not help them learn. I personally do not, or I do not think that is true. I think that although there may be a ratio of 1 to 30 in a classroom, it's still um, the teacher is still able to engage in these students throughout the whole class year. They're able to have those one-on-one with those students. They're able to help those students that they find possibly struggling, suggesting them coming into class during a break or during their lunch or before school to go ahead and help them achieve what they feel, what the teachers feel like they may not be achieving. And then I also wanted to specify how he mentioned that him himself did not qualify for free lunch. And although that is very unfortunate, and there are many students that, maybe couldn't afford those school lunches but still had to pay, that is something that um, the school community needs to work on, the school district needs to work on. But overall, for that argument, I'm really specifying on how these national school lunch programs have really helped a lot of students. Although it may not help every single student, they're doing their best to help most students. And in my subpoint C of that second argument, I did mention how, without consistent daily meals, students lack the energy to participate and get stressed about what they will eat next for those students that maybe go home and have no food. So I do think that that is very good that the public school system does do that has not failed their kids to help them um, get food through free or reduced school meals, um, specifically in this article that I had to help low income students. And then I want to go ahead and just go over the rest of my arguments one more time to show you why you should vote for negative today. Um, my first argument, availability. Um, School and education is very important for everyone. So it's really great that the public school systems offer education to every single child in the community. Um, like it mentioned in my subpoint B, the Huffman Post notes that by law, public schools cannot turn away students away based on academic performances, income level, or disability. My opponent didn't really hit that one. Um, so I want to say that that's really important, especially for these students with disabilities. They have to the public school system has to ensure that they do have an education. And then my last argument, public schools can sponsor more activities. My opponent did not bring this one up, so I'm going to say that I won this one. Um, because I'm going to go over it again. It does, public schools offer extracurricular sports and clubs, academic sports, and better supplies and learning tools. Therefore, public schools do have the edge. Therefore, public schools have not failed our children. They're helping them, create different opportunities, be able to learn different new things. For example, if a kid wants to play soccer, they have that opportunity to play that through the public school system, or say they want to join a choir class or an art class, they're able to do that with the public school system. Like I stated in my subpoint D, public schools are more likely to offer gifted and talented opportunities and programs, as well as remedial, meaning a program for students that have a hard time learning or have failed certain classes to be able to reteach them so they can learn that again. So, based off my three arguments today, I hope that you see that the public school systems have not failed our children, that it is helping them get on the right path, and that I want to say that I did prove that public school um, with the negative have benefits children more. And don't forget to vote negative. Thank you.
All right. Starting my final 3 minutes. As my opponent said, thank you for coming out and listening to this debate. Um, I think that the affirmative has won this case because it showed the the liabilities that public school systems have in relations to their poor teacher ratios to students. Um, my opponent also said that um, that sports and other extracurricular activities are more beneficial in public schools. Um, I want to disagree with that real quick because it slipped through my argument, but um, a lot of private schools have all those extracurricular activities, and that's because they specifically want that, and they give them all the resources they need to go on and maybe get a scholarship or go professional. Um, I also want to revisit my other argument of the standardized testing. Teaching kids unnecessary skills is a waste of time, especially when they're spending 8 hours of their day out in school. Um, I also wanted to revisit the meals. Um, we have 2 meals. Well, at least in my school, we had 2 meals per day. We had our nutrition and our lunch, and sometimes kids don't even eat those. I knew a lot of people who didn't um, get food on either of those occasions, and they wouldn't do it for like one day or 2 days out of the week. They would do it like the whole year. So that's where I wanted to like disagree with her on that aspect. Um, Also, going back to the student teacher ratio, my opponent said that the teacher is still teaching them while the ratios are really high, but for students to pay attention, they need to be like in smaller classes so they could have fewer distractions and have more one-on-one conversations with the teacher over questions or clarifications that they may need. Um, and that's why I think that I was able to reach the criterion better than my opponent because um, what benefits children is having a better education, and by pointing out that the public school system is failing them is what could benefit them by having a reform on the public school system. Thank you.
So I'm supposed to judge now, right? It's like, all right. So yeah, thank you guys for coming out today and doing your debate. I really enjoyed listening to you guys' arguments. I think both of you guys both had really good, compelling points and arguments to your topic today. I think both of you guys had no. I can relate to Jesus when he was sharing about different things about the public school system. I think by no means the public school system is perfect. I think there's definitely issues and things in that nature. But today, I think I'm gonna have to give the. I think Larissa had the more compelling argument today, and yeah, I'm just gonna give it to Larissa. But yeah, thank you guys for arguing. You guys both did really good, and yeah, I'm gonna end the broadcast.